Yo YouTube everyone, welcome back to the channel. For today's video I'm going to be giving some tips and tricks to improve as an assault rifle player. Many layers to the game when it comes to an AR player. Today I'm going to be trying my best to kind of give you guys some tips and tricks to help me get to iridescent as a solo queue player, and overall things I feel like I coach a lot of like plats, diamonds, golds, and kind of like things that I see that they do that I want them to work a little bit more on, okay, especially when it comes to the AR role. So let's get right into it. The first thing I would say in terms of an assault rifle player is in a game like Call of Duty, within the maps there are a very limited amount of spots, especially because we're not in like jetpacks and stuff. So what I mean by that is there's only going to be set amount of lines of sights that you're going to see, okay? So let's use a map like Skyline, or let's use Skyline, okay? So let's say the first P1, okay? You go to point 1, you for the most of it know that the AR player is going to be on the top catwalk, maybe by piano, maybe bedroom, like you know roughly where they're going to be. So the first thing I would say is anticipation. Whenever you're playing, try your best to like use omni movement to anticipate where the opponents are going to be, and use the combination of omni movement plus like slide canceling plus pre-aiming the head glitches. So what you want to do is like as you go around corners, for example, you want to kind of center where you expect enemies to be. So have a plan before you get to an area of where they should be based on just your experience of playing. That's a very important thing, especially as an AR player, because you have that long range weapon. You can kind of go around and just pre-aim a head glitch. And the thing is, the way cameraing works as well is when you come around the corner, let's say you slide cancel around the corner, you are going to see them a second before they see you. So if they're just not moving on a head glitch, you're going to beam them. Very important, okay? The next thing in terms of like what you want to do as an AR is just you are the damage dealer. The way I kind of look at the AR role overall is like, I look at it like a soldier in war, right? You know when you see the war films and stuff like that, like when they're in battle, I look at it like the soldiers in war that are fighting next to each other are kind of like the submachine gun players, where they're kind of getting in the action and fighting each other. And the ARs I always look as like the kind of like the arrows at the back. You know those people at the back of the fight that like putting the damage down, they're chucking their arrows and stuff like that. That's kind of how I look at the AR role. And I use like a chess metaphor as well, of like the subs are kind of like your pawns going into battle and you're kind of like the back line. I think a perfect example is Vault, right? When you look at Vault P3, it is that essentially where you are on top and you are sending your soldiers out to fight for you, and you are basically the damage dealer. So the biggest thing I would say as an AR player is just making sure you are consistently putting out damage, okay? Don't worry about overcomplicating the game. As an AR, the game can be very simple for you. Just rotate early, set up in power spots, and just put damage down. And that's the big part of it, just making sure you're putting damage down, being annoying, okay? What comes with that as well, I think is equally as important, is playing your life. I'm going to use Vault P3, okay? So if you guys that don't know what P3 means, it's a third point on Vault. So you know that kind of whole long street, or even P2, just think about Vault, right? Think about Vault and think about either areas, the left side of the map or the right side of the map, okay? So you got P2, the whole palm area, or P3, the whole kind of street, okay? Let's use the P3 street. If I'm coming from P2 side, so I'm coming from, let's say, the bad side, right? And I am trying to fight the guys on the hill. If there's nobody on the other team that's on top arc, I have an easy way of breaking because I can just go in, right? But if they have somebody on top, I physically can't just run in because they're going to fry me every time. So think of your AR players like that, right? So if you're an AR player, you're the damage dealer. And sometimes your aura alone, just being up there, is enough to stop them from pushing. That's how I want you to think about it. Your life is so valuable that, you know, if you overcommit and die, now that you're dead, not only are you not putting damage onto your opponents, you're actually giving them an easy chance of pushing. Right? I want you to think about like a sentry gun. You are legit a remote sentry gun. Now imagine if your sentry gun, you're playing pubs, right? You see a sentry gun, you're going to try your best to avoid that area. You're going to, obviously sentry guns are a little bit different, more health, right? But generally you're going to like not try and challenge that. And I want you to think about it like that. You're like a remote sentry gun where you're holding down a lane. If they disable your sentry gun, that lane is now free to go to and people are going to push it, okay? So I feel like if you're weak, for example, and you're up top, don't just think, oh, I have to help my team. It's like, just take your time, back away, reposition, play your life a little bit, because if you die, you are giving them the green light to go, flood your teammates. Really important. So you want to be a bit safer, play your life a bit more, okay? Make sure you're crouching, strafing, just using your cover more. Another thing is off angles. Off angles is so important. It kind of goes with the point one I made, right? The point one I made was like how there's only a limited amount of lines of sight. That being true, you can be creative with it. There's certain areas on the map where you can maybe play slightly less, I would say, effective angles, but because they're off angles, they are actually more effective because people don't expect it, right? So let's just say there's a really common head glitch on the map, and you know, everyone goes, it's a great head glitch, okay? Even though it's a great head glitch, the fact that everyone knows about it and is ready for that fight, it kind of nerfs the head glitch itself. That head glitch itself may be a better spot, but sometimes you might want to play somewhere a little bit odd, maybe a little bit less effective at a spot, but because it's an off angle, people aren't ready for it. And I feel like that's such a crucial way of playing, because people are always going to think, right, this is how most people think. What would I do if I was that player? And then they try to play against that. So if you're playing such a weird way in terms of off angles, they won't be able to predict you. And then you've kind of done half the battle already. So off angles is huge. With off angles, something I always talk about as an AR player is stretching the map. So what I mean by that is, let's use, what map can we use? Let's use Protocol. I think it's a great example, right? With Protocol, you know, let's say you're breaking P1 from P3 side. So you're going from that side, right? On control, imagine you're on the offensive team, that side, right? Not many people go to the helicopter on the right. But not even just go to the helicopter. Imagine going to the right where the heli is, but going on the right side of it. What most people do is they kind of just stay center to the map, and they kind of just look center. But you know, when you stretch the map, so you go either all the way left or all the way right, it's just because it's such a like unique part of the map, you can get so many free kills from the angle you have. Like, you can look at people where they're not looking at you because they're not going to be looking at the edge of the map. So sometimes, especially like lines of sights there, it's really, really efficient. I think it's one of my favorite things to do is kind of get those off angles again. Works really, really well there, and just stretch the map a little bit. And sometimes you're going to find certain areas on this stretch of the map, they are off angles. They're kind of similar because people aren't expecting it. So it's a really good way of getting kills. But yeah, those are kind of overall the main points. I feel like I was just watching a lot of AR plays, and those are kind of the main things I found. Actually, there's one more thing I think I did quite well as an AR. And I think it's watching multiple areas. I love this example of Vault, right? I want you to think of Vault P1 and imagine you're watching Catwalk, but you're on P2 side, okay? So you're on P2 side and you're watching Catwalk. I think when I'm watching people, something I really realize is they commit to one area of the map. So they're like, okay, I'm watching Catwalk, right? And they just watch Catwalk. But I'm like, you have to realize that there are so many other areas on the map where they could push from. You as an individual, like there's like 10 areas, right? If you're only watching one and your teammates are all watching one each, you're leaving out 6 potential areas. So for me, it's very important to make sure that you're watching one and then maybe sliding backwards, watching something else, and just picking up different areas. And what happens is, if you do it quick enough, right? So let's say you watch Catwalk, okay? Then you slide backwards and watch the far left pool area, and then you got Catwalk again. What you're doing is you're giving yourself enough time where if an opponent tries to slip by, you will catch them before they kill your teammate. So you're not staying and watching one area for 30 seconds, you're watching it for 5 seconds and you're backing away, watching another area for 2 seconds, then going back up top again. And what happens is you give yourself the timing. You allow yourself to give it up for 1 second. If for somehow they push you when you just give it up, you're going to be back as well before they can kill your teammates. So you give yourself a good timing, okay? Really, really important. Another thing is just kind of making sure that you're utilizing and blocking spawns and not really worrying about your score and your, you know, oh, I have to have the most kills in the lobby, because sometimes I feel like what AR players are is like, sometimes I get annoyed because I'm, you know, I feel like I've had a 10 out of 10 performance and in the score I'm like 3rd, or I might not have that many kills, and I'm like, it's just the way the role is sometimes, where you're not going to be able to maybe have as many engagements as a sub in certain areas, certain maps, right? If you're doing a great job as an AR, right? Let's say you're doing a phenomenal job as an AR and you're locking spawns down and holding lanes and being annoying, right? Your sub should have a field day. And if it's a good sub, he's going to get so many kills because of your good work. So it's kind of like the selfless role sometimes, in my opinion. And I feel like without the AR role doing that, the subs aren't able to do their role. So it's kind of just one of those where it looks like on the scoreboard you're not doing a lot, it's going to happen. One thing I think people get in a trap as well is when they're playing the AR role, they kind of sometimes think about spawns so much when they're out of the game. I really want you to make sure that when you're using the AR role, you're not out of the game. Make sure you're prioritizing rotations and spawns, but at the same time, be in positions where you can still impact the game. Certain times, yes, you want to be out the game and kind of hiding at the back and blocking spawns certain times, right? But I've seen some people when I'm coaching them, that's what they do majority of the game. They'll be like 15 and 15, and it's like they get fried. And it's like, oh, but I was holding spawns. It's like, yeah, but you were holding spawns, but leaving your team in a 3v4 all game long, right? You need to make sure that you're having a balance. If you're holding spawns, it's fine, but you also need to make sure when your team are trying to break, you're going with them. Or when your team are holding, you're blocking spawns for a second, then you're setting up. Like, you have to make sure there's a fine balance there. Another one is just making sure that you strafe in gunfights, control your shot, practice your shot. One other thing is a tap fire. I love the tap fire in terms of when you're shooting a weapon, don't just shoot it consistently for 30 bullets because the recoil goes all over the place, right? Shoot for like 6 bullets, stop for 1 millisecond, let your gun reset, then shoot again. And what happens is your gun moves like a laser. You'll love it. You'll love it. You'll see that your gun's like, wow, this is like a laser. So yeah, those are my tips and tricks. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll catch you guys for another video tomorrow. Peace.